Welcome everyone, my name is Sue Elson. We're at the session Over 50 and Fabulous at the Melbourne Career Expo 2023. This is being recorded by my little phone over there, so you're behind me, so you should be all okay. And I welcome questions during the presentation as well as at the end. Just to give you a tiny bit of background on me, I started my career 6 days after my last year 12 exam at Westpac in Adelaide, where I worked for 11 years, moved to Melbourne in 1994. I pretty much haven't had a real job since. So I'm here to tell the tale, and also and I'm a member of lots of organisations. I've written 5 books, and I do a lot of voluntary work as well. This is all voluntary today, and I invite you, as I'm a representative of the Career Development Association of Australia, we're visiting our stand next door as well. So I'm going to go through a number of slides here. All of these slides are available, so if you want to grab the little slip of paper on the front of the desk there, I'll send them through to you. There's also a little scan code and email you can send me at the end. And then I'll be on the main stage at 2:30 talking about artificial intelligence and jobs as well, if you'd like to listen to that presentation. So one of the first things you need to do, even though we're all fabulous and over 50, is fill in your LinkedIn profile and your resume. And a lot of people will tell you only put in the last 10 years because you don't want anybody to know that you're over a certain age. And I disagree with that. If somebody doesn't want to employ me because I'm 58 and proud of it, they can get stuffed. That's not my problem, that's their problem. So I have found that in your job search process, which is a different process to completing the task, you should aim for decision makers that are roughly 10 years older or younger than you, because they're going to be a little bit more open to hearing from you than my fictitious 20-year-old Simone. And I used to be 20-year-old Simone making decisions, and when I was that Simone, I used to think anybody over 30 was old. So now that I'm 58, I must be just about ready for the grade, according to my 20-year-old version of me. Now, in that record of everything you've done, you can talk about your achievements and your tasks. Now, the fact that I spent 11 years at Westpac at the beginning of my career, that was very foundational. I'm risk averse, I have corporate experience, all of that is really, really valuable to me. So that's why it's there. And when you fill in your LinkedIn profile, if you haven't done it, it's an opportunity to reflect on all the amazing things you've done. So quite often when you are required to complete key selection criteria, what will happen is you'll have to provide descriptions of something you've done in the past. So if you've got it already written on your LinkedIn profile, it's going to be much easier to reproduce that in your key selection criteria. And this process can also be a fantastic opportunity for you to actually think about the tasks you enjoy, because some of them we liked, some of them we didn't, the industries we worked in, the ones we liked, the ones we didn't, as well as the people that you've worked with along the way. And if you have a resume, it needs to be applicant tracking system friendly. So you might think, oh, I'm up to date and I'll create a Canva resume because that looks fabulous. Well, that applicant tracking system is just a dumb, stupid computer, and it can't read all those beautiful colours and pictures and columns and fonts and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't give you any value. So again, on my little handout, I'm happy to email you an applicant tracking system friendly resume. You just, really put in all your own information in there. Apart from LinkedIn, if you've decided to apply for jobs that are listed on Seek, you could also upload all your information into Seek, and then recruiters or decision makers can look in there to find candidates without advertising. So that can also be helpful. I did that recently. It took me quite a long time, so we warn you it's not for the faint-hearted, and make sure you haven't got a pressing deadline because it will take a little bit. And any other recruitment platform records. So as a general rule, when you apply for a job, they will only keep your application in the system for about 3 months. After that, you've got to basically start all over again. So just keep that in mind as well. And also, if you are not currently working, on LinkedIn, the algorithm prefers people that have a current job. So you can say that from when your last job finished until now, you were doing career research and the type of work that you like, and then you can say your employer is various. So So then you fool the algorithm into believing you're currently working. It's not a lie, because when I read it as a decision maker, I'll see that you're doing clear research. I'll know that you don't actually have the job. But it's much better to go from a job into a job than from no job into a new job. Now the next component is really focusing on what you would like to achieve. And you might say, I just want any job. Well, in any culture, whether you believe in God, the universe, the extraterrestrials, whatever it is you believe in, there's a philosophy that says, ask and you will receive, right? That's in most traditions of some sort. But if you don't know what you're asking for, how can you receive it? So you've got to be a little bit clearer. Now, sadly, I probably will never be a brain surgeon. I've probably gone past the age of having that as a choice, but there are plenty of others. So if I think about the values I have that are important to me, for example, I will not work in a gaming venue. I will not work with alcohol. These are things that I will not do. So they're my values. And then in terms of the value I can provide, then I have to think about what that is as well. So if I was a brain surgeon and everybody's brain was fine, I'd have no work. So that wouldn't be a value that would be worth exchanging. Now my strengths. As I mentioned in my earlier presentation today, I'm really good at counting and I hate it. But then there's lots of other skills I've learned over time that are fantastic. So I look at my acquired skills as much as I look at my natural skills. And I also think about my context. So when my children were young and I didn't have childcare, nobody took after them when they were sick or during school holidays, I literally could not have a full-time job. There was no options available to me. So that meant I had to adjust my expectations during that time of my life and then readjust them when I had more flexibility. So it's okay to have something called a job for now. And I was really excited recently when I heard a story of a woman who was over 60 and she got some help and she ended up with 2 jobs because nobody could afford her for 5 days a week, but they could afford her for 2 days here and 3 days there. So she ended up with a 5-day-a-week job, but with 2 different organisations, and that's really great too. You don't necessarily, some organisations can't afford a very experienced person for 5 days. You also need to look at the process you've used for getting a job up until now. And I find a lot of people over 50 say, well, I just ended up there. A friend got me that job. Or I just heard about it and I got it. And so they have ended up getting all of their jobs just randomly. It's never been something they've added to it. So just be aware that these are new skills you need to learn. And also the opportunity that is available for those jobs. So as I said with a brain surgeon, if everybody was fine, they'd be in their jobs. But also, are there jobs close to home? I think this is one of the best ways to work. Not working from home, working close to home. Because you still get to go out, you still get to engage with other people, and you don't have a huge commute. And that's not always possible for every job, but it's a really good option to consider if you are in transition. So you might say, look, it's a pretty average job, but it's close to home and it means I can still play golf 3 days a week, and that could be really appealing to somebody. Now, all of these slides have a few little extra links on them that you can check out. If you can't decide what you would like to do, you can use this values-based decision-making framework. And in the middle are the non-negotiables that you absolutely must have, and everything else is anything that you've ever thought of and is possible that you've done, whatever, and you can use that link to get the full description of this process. And then you go back the next day and you circle it. So then if a job opportunity comes to you, or you think about a job opportunity, you say, does it match my values? And then you can say, yes, I'll go for it, or no, it doesn't, and then you can make a choice around that as well. Now, something that a lot of people forget is the value of a network. And there's a little story that I'd like to share on this as well. My tax accountant said to me one year, Sue, you need to earn more money before the 30th of June. And as I said, I don't have a real job, well, as in a normal job we go each day. And he said, why don't you ask 3 of your clients to prepay you for next financial year? So I contacted 3 of my clients And I said, my tax advisor told me I need to get some prepayments, is there anything you can do? All three of them gave me money, and I didn't suggest how much they should give me. One gave me $750 up front, one gave me $2,200, and another one gave me $5,500. Now, you tell me when you go to your boss and say, can you give me some money before I've done the work? But a network can give you that opportunity. If you ask your friends and say, look, I need some work, ideally around this, but I'm also happy to consider this, you might be able to get a referral, and then that leads to an opportunity. So then you're not competing with the 300 other applicants that were into that ad that was online. And up to 95% of jobs are never even advertised. So that's something to think about as well. So your professional peers, your friends, your former work colleagues, teammates in sports or hobbies or interests, your fellow students or alumni, so go back to where you studied all those years ago and see if there's anybody you remember. Say, hey, what are you up to? You got any leads for me? Is there anybody I should talk to? Don't ask them for a job, you just say, can you refer me? And then you've got that referral. Also think about joining a professional association. Now some of them are expensive, I'm a member of many, and they all cost me around $300 or more a year to be a member of, but a number of them have mentoring programs. So I'm a member of the Melbourne Press Club, and I'm not a journalist, and I go along to their events, which are for early stage journalists. So I get all the new knowledge that a new journalist would get by going to those events. And so I find that really, really interesting. So you could also see if they have reverse mentoring, where you could mentor a younger person, and then the younger person could mentor you in new ways of using technology or different ways of doing things now. And you can also consider paying for professional career assistance. We're members of the CDAA next door. We're all qualified, so a lot of people will pay for education, but then they won't pay for assistance on helping them get a job. So I spent 3 years reading books, trying to work out what I do with my life, and I could have achieved fantastic support and help in 3 hours with a careers advisor. So I can definitely recommend that process as being really, really worthwhile. So where can you get help? Now, I've put on this slide some very specific links. So the federal government has realised that mature age workers need some extra help, and they have something called the Mature Age Workers Hub, and that has a lot of information. We're very fortunate in Australia that government information is usually excellent quality. There's also Workforce Australia Services Wage Subsidy. So maybe you know an employer who would like to consider you, you might be able to recommend that they also get a financial subsidy for hiring you. So that might be an extra incentive for them to consider you as an applicant. And there's also a skills and training incentive. So if you're currently working somewhere and you want some extra training, you might qualify for that. The My Future website has information on jobs, predicted salaries, predicted levels of employment, professional associations associated with those jobs, so you can have a look at that. There's also a career assessment quiz. Now some of you may find that it's more suited to a younger person, but you might get some insights about yourself by doing that career quiz yourself. The Victorian Government has the Finding a Job Guide. Now the next one is the Jobs Victoria Career Counsellor. This is a free service that is being defunded. So please, if you're going to make use of this, log on today and try and book an appointment, because I don't know that it's going to disappear, because they've decided not to fund it and to let TAFE provide that service, which to me is not quite right. No, so no more tax. Yeah. Sadly, alright, thank you for letting me know. But there are a lot of online resources still available, so please make sure you go through those and perhaps book an appointment with a CDAA member. There's lots of them and we specialise in lots of areas. A number of employers offer employee assistance programs, so you might have a job now and if you're finding some challenges, you can look at an employee assistance program, and that is confidential. So you might think, oh, I'll tell my employer. No, they won't. It is confidential, so you can look into that. If you do lose your job, you are usually entitled to some form of outplacement service. And a lot of people are so angry that they say, no, I'm not having it. And I'm saying, go with it if you have that opportunity, because there will be something you'll learn from it. Now, recruiters. If you target recruiters who've been doing the job for more than 3 years and who specialise in your area of expertise, they are more likely to be interested in hearing from you than someone who's a generalist recruiter. Because if they specialise in an area, they may have their own little gene pool of candidates that they recommend for other opportunities. But remember, at the end of the day, they're paid for by the employer, not by you as the candidate. So they've got no obligation to help you as the candidate. They've only got to help the employer. But if you can state your case and say you're happy to be on their books when an opportunity comes available because they specialise in that area, that can work for you. Education providers, so if you've done a course through a university or a TAFE, you can sometimes go back and get support from there. And the local community or council will also have initiatives to help people in the community. But you can also, I run events for my local council, and you can go to those events, you can meet local businesses at those events, that can be good networking for you. And please be discerning about the advice from well-meaning friends and family. We've all got one of those friends who whinges about everything. We've all got those friends who say you must do it my way. We've all got those friends who make some suggestions that are so ridiculous that even they wouldn't do it, that they expect you to do it. So just keep that in mind. Is the advice worth listening to or applying to a situation or not? Now, a lot of people assume that older people are not as well qualified or as current. And there's been some research that suggests that they perform as well or better than younger employees. And then they offer additional benefits like loyalty and turning up to the office because the rest all want to stay home. So there's a lot of things you can do, and there's a lot of free and low-cost courses you can do. So a lot of people with an older mindset will assume, well, unless I've got a PhD in X, I can't be an X person. That's not the case now. You can just do micro credentials, which are small, short courses, rather than doing a full formal education in a different industry. And at one thing Expo some years ago, I had a person come up, and she was a banker, banking now, I'm an ex-banker, so that's interesting. And she said she wanted to be a commercial airline pilot. And I said, have you ever taken a flying lesson? And she hadn't. And she couldn't decide whether she should spend all that money on a commercial pilot's license course. So I suggested maybe she could go and pay for 10 flying lessons and then decide whether she would really like to do the commercial pilot's license course or not. So there are ways to start these things before you spend a fortune on training. You can also consider a temporary offer to local enterprises. So let's say there's a local business and they need some help. They don't need someone full time, but it's close to where you live and it's in an area of work that you would really love. I produced a little letter that I folded up in 3, not even with an envelope, not with an address, nothing. And I just went round to local businesses and I put it under the door. And I got a phone call and I got a job offer from that. So that can be another way. And I said, look, I'm happy to work for those 20 hours for, I don't know, I think I said $40 an hour. But there's no commitment, no obligation. So that way they got to see me, I got to see them, and we could decide if we were fit. And that worked really well. And believe it or not, that simple piece of paper gave me a phone call 2 years later because somebody had kept it and I got another gig 2 years later. So you think, sending out emails is the best way, but guess what? A piece of paper that somebody can hold their hand with, they can still follow up. So again, if you want these details, just contact me and I'm happy to shoot you a copy across. No cost. As I said earlier, 2 or more part-time opportunities might be a way for you to go, and also consider that job for now, or a job that will lead to the next job. So that can also be really helpful as well. Now, as we get older, we tend to, I don't know, sometimes reminisce a little bit too much about all the things we did or did not do in our life. And we listen to those stories and think that that's who we are now. And it's not. You know, you can be a new person tomorrow if you so choose. So I encourage you to do things that are difficult but not dangerous. So I don't want you to start bungee jumping, but you know, if you decided to go for a walk every day, that could be really helpful. So let's do some of those things and celebrate your achievements. A lot of people in Australia find it very difficult to talk about their achievements. But an achievement is anything that you did really well in the job or anything that you did over and above what was formally required. They're both achievements. If you said I was the best employee that this organisation ever had, that's probably not going to go down so well. But if you talk to the fact that you did X, Z, Y, A, B, C whilst you were there, then when someone reads that, they're going to say, well, if you did that over there, there's a pretty good chance you can do that over here as well. And that's fantastic. You write achievements in past tense, and you write tasks, the things that you do in the job, in present tense. Because if you write it in past tense, everybody keeps thinking they used to do that, so they can't do that anymore. But if you write it in present tense, it makes them think you're doing that now, and that's the value you're getting across. The other thing I like to talk about is no regrets. As I mentioned this morning, a lot of people I've worked with have had difficult pasts, including time in jail, bankruptcy, fraud, you know, awkward situations, let's put it that way. And that was the past. So from now on, you can operate in a different way. So please don't beat yourself up for these mistakes. What people who've been incarcerated will do is say that they worked for a holding company that ran the correctional facility doing chefing and studying. That's true. That's what they were doing. But obviously, if they have to disclose it when they're working somewhere, then they need to disclose it then. But to give themselves that opportunity, they can definitely use, I call it massaging the message, not bending the truth, but massaging the message to help them get that opportunity. Now, I'm a huge proponent of voluntary work to help the community. I think we should all be doing it. This is voluntary today, not being paid for the time it took to prepare this, or to deliver it, or to keep sessions I'm running next door. But it is a good idea to get out of the house, do things new, meet people, gain skills, ask questions. Some cultures feel very uncomfortable asking questions. But here in Australia, if you ask good questions, people think you're very intelligent. So it's a good idea to ask questions. And get those referred. Say, who else should I speak to? Where could I go for more information? And make sure you've got those achievements in your resume and your LinkedIn profile. And a lot of employers will be very impressed that you've done voluntary work. Now, when I was on a voluntary position for the Australian Human Resources Institute on their Victorian Council, whilst I was in that role, even though I wasn't paid for it, I put it in my professional experience because it was related to my professional career. And then when I was no longer in the role, I just left it in the voluntary section. So you can, juggle these things around over time. Assistance, you definitely need to broaden your view of what's possible. And I recommend that if you're looking for work, you spend 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, and the rest of the time, go for a walk, go to the beach, do whatever else you like to do. Think about if you can improve where you are. If you have a job already, there might be ways that you can tweak it. You can have a job for now. There might be other aspects of your life that need some work, so you can go and get counselling. There's lots of options there. You can speak to your GP and finally get medical issues dealt with. Further education or training. So another client wasn't sure what they were going to do and then just went off into courses until they found something of interest. So that might be your extra spot. Maybe there's some past trauma. I don't know about you, but I spent most of COVID crying, I think, worrying about things that I haven't dealt with for years. So I actually had some time to deal with it. And think about things you could do to have more fun in your life. Walk around with a smile on your face. It's amazing how many people will smile back. And if you haven't got a dog, go out and borrow one and walk someone else's dog, because then people will come over and talk to you. So you need to know the name of the dog, how old it is, what breed it is, and you've got to clean up the poo. But let me assure you, it's a great way to meet people. And also talk to anybody with grey hair. They're always up for a chat. Research your options and consider going international. So if somebody in Australia appreciates you, maybe you can look for an international opportunity. Reflect on what's really important to you in life. Health is really important to me, so I won't do anything that puts my health at risk. You can move beyond even ageism if you provide value. You've got to be able to convince people of the value you bring. And if you want to do some paid networking where you do jobs that don't really pay a lot but will help you meet people, you can go on places like Airtask or WeCall. And my mother tells me, and my grandmother told me, you should always say thank you. So if you do get a referral, you need to go back to that person and say what happened. I spoke to George, unfortunately couldn't help, but I really appreciate you referring me to George in the first place. So I spoke to George and I got an opportunity to give a better his chocolates, or a plaque or some sort of gift to say thank you. Please just don't say you were fabulous, provide specific details. And also, again, if you do get well-intentioned advice, be selective about what you act on and consider the agenda of the person giving you that advice. Maybe they've got some other text to go on. And also, say thank you to the people who love you regardless of all the mistakes and all the grumpiness and everything else that you've ever had going on in your life. So there's a summary of what we've gone through in just over 20 minutes. So there's plenty there to do. Get your records, have a focus, keep networking, use resources, consider some training, have some courage, voluntary work, great for many, many reasons. Keep persistent, start small, and say thank you. Now I'm happy to answer questions, either publicly in front of everyone, or you can come up and chat. But I do need to be over at the main stage for a discussion on artificial intelligence, which is completely different to this presentation. As I said, if you take the little front flyer, there's links to things there, and I'll also send you the slides for all